Hello and welcome to another video on the Ben Nutt family. And what I'm going to show you today is the 1850 census, which kind of shows you what I was saying in the previous video. If you watched that about them floating all the way to Camden, Arkansas, they end up in 1850 there in Tulip, Arkansas. Let's see. This is just showing. We'll go back a little bit here if I can. Here we go. And here's Ben and his wife and their zero age. So apparently just born son John. So very interesting, huh? And we don't know anything about, at least I don't. And if any of you that are watching this know anything about their life in Tulip, I would be really, really interested in knowing about it. I have some ideas about it because I know about what was going on in Tulip. If you don't know about Tulip, it was a really big place at that time. Not sure when. Oh, I guess we could look this up, but the Arkansas Military Institute was in Tulip, which was basically the Southwest, United States version of VMI. And if you've been to Tulip, or if you're from that area and you've just heard that for the first time, you're probably finding that hard to believe. But Tulip was a big place. I'll show you a map that we're going to actually look at. We might as well see it now. This is we call it, or I call it the spy map. It was a map that was created by at least by northern, I don't know, a northern sympathizer or the North during the war. Most of Dallas County was occupied um, during the war, at least for a while. And this is extremely detailed map, and the scan of it's not awesome, but it's not too bad. But anyway, I can show you pretty much where we were. Let's see. There's Princeton. There's Tulip. And it was right here where these creeks all are. This is the Sam Smith plantation area here. And when we go back over, which I'll do right now, and pull this up, I did a little research on this just to see, who was all around us and whatnot, right? And that would be a good thing to know. Ben's just showing up as a laborer. There's a laborer and a farmer, and those are two different things in 1850. If you're a farmer, you're going to end up having a lot of wealth. You're going to have some family, land, and things like that. Sorry, this is taking a minute to load for some reason. Hopefully, I'm not losing it. This would be a bad time to lose this. There we go. Okay, and here's the actual document itself. Let's not struggle with that. Uh-oh. Now I'm going back a little bit. Sorry, things get weird when you have all this video going at the same time. Let's go back to it. You guys don't take anything in my family tree stuff if you run into it too seriously. I play around with things a little bit. So if you run into something and have some questions, let me know. This is not going too well. It's not going well at all. Anyway, well, okay, here we go. I was about to say, let me talk about a little bit more about Tulip. Anyway, Tulip, the map will show, had a hospital. Princeton had a women's college. And of course, there was a lot of interplay between them and stuff. If you're interested in what it was like, I believe her name was Mary. Her first name's Mary, but it's Owens is her last name. No relation to my Owens. I dug around, and I'm confident that we're not related, at least not close. But regardless of that, she has a real interesting diary and describes what the place looked like and whatnot. Sounds pretty interesting. All right, so let's look at let's look at who our neighbors were, because that's going to show us a lot of stuff. So here's Ben and Judy, or Joanna. She shows up as Joanna in the next one. So I have a tendency of calling her Joanna. Now this is showing up as Samuel's spear, but I suspect this is Samson's spear. Okay. And if you know about old Samson, he ended up having the same problem Ben did. Yeah. And I also find this interesting. Look who's also down there. If you know about the spear murder, you know that also there was a Dan Roy that was also murdered as well. So he was friends. There was some friendship going on here. Now, there's in the mythology, uh, it's like Ben gets murdered, and then Samson kind of freaks out or whatever and goes the other. I don't know, that timeline has never worked out for me. So, and if you're like, well, it's just too much of a circumstance, it actually is not too much of a circumstance that those men were all hung. A lot of men in their age range, particularly, were hanged during that time because of some things. Anyway, we'll go into that in another video. But these folks were all living next to each other. I find that really interesting. The Mitchell family, I don't have a lot to say about that. I don't know of any connection with them. Now here's Samson. Actually, that's another Samson though. That's not his father. I don't. No, it isn't. Here's a John Nutt that owns quite a bit, and he's also going to own quite a bit later too. So we could have been here, and I haven't been able to find this. That's not necessarily saying it wasn't there. Obviously, it was, but this doesn't show up on the spy map that I can find. Okay, and so I'm going based off of. I think it's this image here. There's an O in there, but that's not the same ones. There's a Sutherland family that we could have been like working for or something, and I can't find them on the map. But we also could have been working for. There's Stags folks, because we're all kind of living close to each other. Um, where's that at? There's some more spears. Where was the Samuel Smith stuff? Sorry, y'all. I thought I had this better together. Maybe it's on this page. There's Samson. Yeah, there's the Sam Smith. I'm sorry, it was actually on this page. All right, so yeah, we were living close to them. A lot of other famous, Dallas County names on here too. So that's been sort of my idea, is that we came up and we've went to work basically for some of the bigger plantations and whatnot. And Samson, I haven't seen him on here. I should pull him up too, but I know in the next one we'll look at, he's listed as a carpenter. So you know, part of that, as I say, mythology of him making the boat and everything. Well, he was absolutely listed as an occupation as a carpenter on here, and they didn't play with those occupations lightly back in those days. You couldn't just say, "Hey, I'm a carpenter," like kind of like you might be able to today. So um, I find that interesting. So all right, so what happened between 1850 and 1860? Well, I showed, I don't have them up right now, but in the last video, I showed where we had purchased the land of the farmland around 1860, and other Nutts were doing the same thing, because there's Sampson, right? He's there. He is listed as a carpenter. Oh, interesting. We also have a junior listed as a carpenter. I didn't notice. I didn't know about that. That's and he was probably born, after Ben, probably one of Ben's younger brothers or something like that. Anyway, here's Ben, BF Nutt, and Joanna, his wife. And now, where are we now? It's Calhoun is coming up as Caswell. I've never really seen that anywhere else but here. But this is it's close to Bearden, and I'll drive down that way sometime and show you kind of where it is and what's going on there. Let's see. Here's Mahalia, which I love. This my great grandmother's name is that. So um, Ben here apparently like Junior, who was this is who I'm descended from, must have liked her a lot because he named one of his daughters Mahalia. So anyway, and here is Ruth. Now, the first time I read the obituaries on Find a Grave, and what I call it Find a Myth too. I love it, but it also take everything with a big grain of salt there. Um, the story on Joanna was that she died in childbirth with the baby Ruth, and that they both perished. Okay. And that does not seem to be the case, obviously, with this. Okay. So or at least they're alive at this point. Okay. After this, I've really got nothing on her. I probably need to do a whole thing on Joanna, but in fact, I will. But in short, either she died very shortly after this right here. There's also a story that she died in childbirth with triplets, which is not unheard of in our family to have multiple births like that. Um, And then there's also a story where she was trying to keep horses from being stolen. She grabs a hold of the horses, the reins, and gets pulled over a fence, and dies as a result of that. And so I don't know if any of that is true. I mean, something in there is true, right? And but anyway, she does not. She doesn't make it out of the Civil War. Absolutely not. And the stories that I hear of, and that I'm going to recount of Ben's demise would make you think that she's no longer in the picture at that stage. And that Ruth is no longer there as well. I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that that Ruth Nutt, out of the children here, lived and moved on. But I would love to hear different on that. I just can't find anything on that. All right, so that gets us to about 1860, and they've bought farms. The family is living around. Here's other. Ooh, this is pleasant. This is quite a bit of real estate back in the day. From what I have looked into, and I'll check again, but or maybe you should go look into the slave schedules, and you will see almost no instances of any nuts. And in my line, there are no instances of us owning slaves. There's a lot of mythology about Ben and Samson Spear, about them and their distaste of slavery, and we'll talk about that, of course, in a more appropriate time. But it looks to me as though we weren't involved in the true plantation lifestyle. We were just trying to have some farms around there. And this happens up in the kind of upper part of Calhoun County, and I have some already, but I'll redo some videos and start talking about. I'll go down there. Like I said, I'll show the farm, but we'll also go to a cemetery and start talking about some of the rest of the Nutt family and some interesting things down there. So, all right. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video.